Good morning, everyone. This is Heather Quick with the Quick Law Group. Thank you for joining us today for the Alimony Workshop. I'll tell you first a little bit about myself. I have been a practicing attorney for 17 years in the state of Florida, and my career started as a state attorney, as a prosecutor, and then through the transition, really found myself drawn to the area of family law. And through that experience in beginning both men and women, I really found my passion in helping women. A lot of reasons because of what I could really do for them and patterns that I would see over and over. My goal in creating and building this firm and spreading it throughout Florida is to really help women understand their options and their rights so that they can make educated decisions and they can move on with their future based on what's best for them and their children and their family. Today, I wanted to talk about alimony because I have found it tends to be one of the most common questions asked, the biggest concerns, and there's really a lot of unknown for many of our clients and women out there in general. So today I'm going to talk about really the 3 W's with alimony: who, what, and when. And really delve into that, at least with the most common questions I have asked. Keep in mind, it does differ based on your circumstances and facts. And that, I will just tell you, is a beautiful thing. And one of the things I love about the law is because your facts, as they are applied to the law in our state, can be interpreted differently. And this can be good and bad, but I see it as good, of course, from an attorney's perspective, because we can take your situation, and if we're willing to delve deep enough into your facts and really where you want to be, it is most often the time there is a way to get you where you want to go. It's not a black and white rule. And many people feel that way and they want that answer, frankly. Like, well, give me the line. How long do I have to be married to get alimony? It's not that straightforward. There are some guidelines, and I can tell you exactly how the law is written, but there are a lot of facts in everybody's case that can alter that. And that way, when we really look at how is this going to affect you, we need to know all the facts. It's not that simple of an answer. And that's why when you Google it and look up information on the internet, which is a wonderful thing to be an informed, educated consumer, but it can also hamper you because maybe you'll think that that's your only option. And that's because you'll need the legal advice to really help you interpret your facts to the law and some of the nuances and how things apply, because really there can only be so much written online. And, maybe this would address one particular issue in your life, but probably not all of them. And you don't know what you don't know. That's like for any of us that are delving into an area they're not used to. So you might not even ask the questions or offer the information because you don't know that something is a possibility. And that's just, an overview and to encourage you to take this information and certainly ask questions of us and follow up with us later, because how will this information apply to you is going to be different for everyone who is on this call or watching this video. And I want to encourage you to not end there and think, well, this may not apply to me. At least find out for yourself, because really it's in this type of setting when I'm educating and trying to give you some information, it's going to be broad and it's going to be generalized. And any example I give is probably not going to cover everybody's particular situation. So just understand that. Take this information to give you a great overview, and then we can plug in the facts to that law when you come and talk to us further. So to begin, alimony. Basically, who's entitled to alimony? How does that work? Alimony is spousal support in the state of Florida. The law as it stands now, and keep that in mind, it is December 15th of 2017. I suspect we're going to have some changes in 2018. So we'll, of course, update this as necessary. But who does alimony apply to? This may seem like common sense, but it's important for me to say you have to have been married. There are so many people nowadays who have children and don't get married and or live together and agree to some kind of arrangement in regards to financial support or how you are handling expenses. I just want you to know you have no protection under the law if you're not married. in this realm of spousal support and or the distribution of assets, which I'm not going to talk about this time, but we can certainly, do another video on that. So you have to be married, and it can even be, it can't be, a domestic partnership, and you have to be married within the state of Florida and recognized by Florida. Some people talk about common law marriage. I don't really hear that very often, but it's not valid in Florida. If you were recognized as a common law marriage in another state and then came to Florida, it is possible. It would be very expensive, probably, and a huge litigation issue. So just keep that in mind. But that is something that would be really important to bring up. And, hey, maybe we were recognized as married in another state and now have been living here. How does that apply? Because we're a very mobile society. So it's important to know that you may still be entitled. We're just going to have to look into it and maybe even work with an attorney from the state you were with to give you the best advice and option. But that comes it comes up a lot as far as, we were validly, married here in Connecticut as in there they named it differently. And now would Florida recognize that? And if we're wanting to get divorced here. So keep in mind, you need to be recognized as a married couple in Florida. Now, then this is definitely changing so very much as it stands now, as far as, are men entitled to alimony or only women? And I know you know the answer to this, that of course it's, gender neutral, if that's even the right word. But yes, both men and women are entitled to alimony. Now, there are 20-some factors on alimony. So I want to tell you that, I'm speaking to women because we only represent women. So I want you to just understand that there are ways to protect you if you are the primary wage earner and you're supporting the family. So I know many women get very defeated and they'll end up staying in an unfulfilling and, terrible relationship because of many fears related to having to pay alimony. At least talk to somebody and don't live in that darkness and really in that ignorance that you're not even sure. And then, that's the price tag you're going to set on your life and your happiness if you're not willing to make a change. But there are many factors that go into that. And so I do want to encourage you that if you are the primary breadwinner, and your husband is just and I'm going to exaggerate the whole, but he's just a bum sitting at home and doesn't do anything, then you may not be as exposed as you think. And I'm not saying it's a slam dunk, and I'm saying it's one of the hottest topics, and you think men don't want to pay alimony, women don't want to pay it even more. Trust me, because the majority of women, and if you look at the statistics, the woman who is in the workforce does more at home than a man in a reverse situation. They end up doing 2 jobs and, probably getting compensated even in the workplace less than most men. So keep that in mind. And, it's something we want to talk about, because I'm not going to go into all the many factors here that relate to alimony, but it is important. It's worth looking at and evaluating your risk. And then you can come up with, well, it's worth it or not to me. No one else can make that decision but you. Now, if you are in the reverse situation and your husband is the one making all the money and, you're like, how is this going to work? I'm so nervous. I haven't worked in 20 years. I don't know what to do. Well, then we go into the evaluation, and certainly you're entitled to alimony. The question is going to be for how much and for how long. I'll say that, I've said that a million times. It's not something anyone's going to know the first time that you meet with them, because it requires a detailed financial analysis, which is what we do. Like I said at the beginning of the video, what lawyers do is they take your facts in the law and we apply them, and we look at all of the scenarios and how those intertwine. So it's not as straightforward. You're going to get permanent alimony, $5,000 a month for the rest of your life. If anybody tells you that, I would leave quickly, because you're going to have unrealistic expectations. And they could be lower. You could be entitled to more or less. It's just a really important financial evaluation. But no, and the length of time. And there are so many different scenarios that can lead to long-term alimony, short-term. And that's the biggest thing to consider is like, well, how long is this going to affect? How long will I be entitled to it? Because I need to plan. this is a good time for me to give an example. And this is an extreme. I like to give extreme examples because I think it's easier. It's easier for me to explain, easier for you to understand. Let's have a 25-year marriage where the husband has been the primary breadwinner and the wife has stayed at home, and she's raised the children. She's done everything. He's slowly crept up in importance and salary in his job. There are still children at home. She doesn't have a college education. And now, and you may have heard this, the husband's like, well, go get a job. I'm done. And that's not the way the law works, I will tell you. And we'll talk a little bit about that later as far as, how they handle if you should get a job and how much would you make. In this particular situation, which is an extreme, a long-term marriage, kids are still at home. And so this is where I'm telling you in this particular situation, there can be a lot of reasons. One, the length of the marriage is one, and his ability to pay, but also what are those circumstances in your daily life that might impede you from even getting a part-time job, which could be children and childcare, the needs of the children, or just needs in general of what you have in your life. So that's an extreme situation. On the opposite end, the woman who's worked, but then also does everything at home, is fully involved with the children, and the husband sits on the couch and he tries to get jobs, but he just doesn't want to do it. He's gone back to school. There's nothing physically wrong with him. And he's just made that choice. Now, I do want to warn you all, the longer you stay in that relationship, the worse off you're going to be as far as having financial obligations. Because just because you say, well, I've been telling him to get a job for 15 years, that's still going to be a difficult uphill battle for you on the issue of alimony. And I mean, here we are in, 2017, but I will tell you, the courts are still going to look, a man who won't go to work and is not taking care of the children and sitting at home is not looked upon the same as a woman. Now, in any case, they're going to spin it one way or another, but those are things to really consider. And that's why it's so important to just at least talk to someone, an attorney who specializes and focuses on family law and divorce, so that you can really understand your options, because that's the only way to make the best choice. Next is, what types of alimony are there on the, on my, when I said the who, what, and when, what types of alimony are there? What's available to me? That's a very common question. And I want to go through a few of them and explain maybe some of the pros and cons, and again, why your discussions with your attorney are so important. And when they ask you a bunch of questions that you're like, I don't know why they're asking me all this, it's important because it helps us determine where you are now, where you want to be, and how should we strategically plan your case. So we've got temporary alimony. So temporary alimony is the alimony that we are going to seek during the divorce. And why during the divorce? Because some divorces take, 1 to 2 years. That is on the long side. And I know that's disheartening to hear, but it's the reality. And I'm not going to go into all the reasons why it can take so long. But you need spousal support during this time if you're not working, or even if you are working, but it doesn't cover the bills. So that's a temporary basis. I find it to be very important to establish a baseline on temporary, maybe not as high as we want, and or it may be higher than we're really going to get. Either way, it sets the tone for the case, and it's very valuable. It does take some real effort and compliance by our clients to do what we've asked them to do on a timely manner. A lot of times you can be overwhelmed. Trust me, if your attorney says, get me this and get it back to me in a few days, there's a reason. It's not just, for you to do busy work. It's to progress your case forward. The next type of alimony is what they call it's called bridge the gap. Just like it sounds, bridging the gap between married life and single life. This is not meant to go on more than 2 years. And that's, in fact, in the statute, it can only last for 24 months. Now, that's important. It may be like, hey, you're both working, but we got to sell a house. We've got to move around and maybe go from part-time to full-time. You're going to be self-sufficient, and it's just going to take a period of time. That's what that serves as after the divorce. The next type is called durational. That's the close. You'll see that the most common lately. And that's something that it really can't be longer than the length of the marriage. And, a lot of people say, well, it's half the time of the marriage. And that's not, again, a black and white rule, but it is a good benchmark to be thinking about it. It'll be the most common under permanent alimony, even in a long-term marriage, for many factors and reasons. And then there's lump sum alimony. You don't see it as often, and I'm not going to go into all the reasons why and what has to be present and how we get to lump sum alimony in a trial. But in a settlement agreement, lump sum can be very valuable. You want to make sure it's, apples to apples. You don't want to take retirement. A huge chunk of retirement is lump sum alimony when you haven't measured out that true value, because of course you can't withdraw it. So it's not the value of the 401k. It's not the same as the value in a money market account. That's really important. You make sure your attorney is doing that analysis for you so that the numbers are quite equal. If they're retirement funds to retirement funds, you don't need to do that evaluation. But if you're counting on that money to put into a house, to buy something to support you, please be aware of that. Sometimes lump sum can be in the form of the equity of the house, and so that you get a bigger share. And it can be for many reasons. One of the most common is you're concerned that he's not going to pay the long-term alimony, and or you just want to get married again, and you know that. I ask that because many times you're in a relationship before the divorce even starts, before it finishes, and I'm not asking because I am nosy. It feels like that because we are all in your business as your divorce attorney, but that's the best way to get you where you want to be. But that's really valid, because if we are going to spend the time and money to get you permanent alimony, I really want at least your best understanding of, hey, I am never getting married again, or I'm not even dating somebody and this is the right thing for me. Because it's your money and it's your time, and that's one of the most litigated things that we do is permanent alimony. So that to me is a really important thing that we've really addressed, dug deep into, because if, as your attorney, if we advise you at the Quick Law Group that you're entitled to permanent alimony, we've been doing this long enough that we're more likely than not correct, but we may have to go to trial for that. So I want to make sure you understand the importance of that. And that's why, you'll have these conversations again and again on the different types and which one applies most and which one is the best strategy to go after, so that you're where you want to be 3 to 5 years from now. And so lastly, permanent. Permanent alimony is not a, line in the sand, again, that when you get it and when you don't. The statute states 17 years, but there can be reasons less than 17 years. It's a higher burden, and we won't go into that, but some facts do lend itself to that. And on the other side, just because you've been married 17 years doesn't mean you're automatically getting permanent alimony. And the best example is couples who were married very young, and they were married at 20, and they're getting divorced. They may be married, 25 years, but you're only 45. And that's very young, especially when we're looking at marriage, or if you're educated, there'll be some alimony, but it is really unlikely that it's going to be for the rest of your life, because you just have so much life still ahead, especially if you have an education and some other things. But it's just important to understand that realistically, and why your attorney can really guide you as to, this is probably where you're going to end up. Doesn't mean we don't ask for, everything, but, the way we work here is certainly to, within your case plan and your goals and strategies, kind of narrow it down to what's most likely and how does that apply to where you want to be and what can we do to make that happen. So then the next thing is, when am I going to get alimony and when does all of this begin? That is, again, we have to file for divorce. There's one instance in Florida where you can get alimony without filing for divorce. It's some people still want an annulment, and I think that's why it's in the statute, because a long time ago it was much more taboo to get divorced, and I understand in some cultures and religions it's still very, very much frowned upon, and so they try to look for other ways. So there's something that's called support without getting divorced. Very rarely, if anybody has any questions about that, it happens. I've done a lot of those, and they're just different circumstances. You don't see it that often. So really we have to file for divorce. We don't have a filing for separation in Florida. I know other states do. Some states require a year of separation. So you have to file something and you have to wait all that time. And many times you can get alimony during that separation. This is the only way of filing for divorce. And I like to address this because many women are just really have a hard time with this. They're like, he's the one that left and he's mad and I'm not filing because I don't want this divorce. He does. I'm going to make him do it. And I understand that. However, he's probably not going to because he's doing whatever he wants and he has no ramifications or consequences for that. He's left not paying the bills, turned things off. He's not going to file for divorce because probably spoke to somebody and or just intuitively knows if we go to court, I'm going to be on the hook because he knows he has financial responsibilities. But right now he's living life exactly the way he wants with no court or judge telling him how to do anything. So just recognize that he's probably not going to file for divorce. And at the end of the day, you have to look within yourself and why is it that you're so afraid to file for divorce? Some of the things I hear is certainly their belief system and structure. But I think if you dig deep down into that, you could reconcile that. Another reason that I hear very often is the children. I don't want my children to ever know that I'm the one that filed for divorce. And that, is a hard belief structure to break down. And I'm not here to say that's right or wrong. I would just ask you to question what else are they seeing? If you guys are going to be homeless and on the street, I think you just have to weigh those particular issues with actually filing for divorce and getting to a court to get support. Because, when we talk about the when, today is December 15th. So let's say, and this is an odd month because obviously the 2 weeks at the end of the year, pretty much nothing's going on that last week. But if we filed today, doing our very best and working very hard and our client, you doing everything you're supposed to with financials, I would say a really good day is within the first couple weeks of February that we could get in front of a court to have a hearing on temporary alimony. And that's stretching it. And I know a lot of, my attorneys and my staff would be like, oh, that's really pushing it. Definitely we tell our clients, be ready 60 days because after your husband served, he has 20 days to respond. I mean, essentially that's a month. So I that's one of the reasons why and I say this a lot because it's hard to hear everything and absorb all the information at once. And it seems like I'm going to go to an attorney and we're going to file and everything is just going to happen like that. And unfortunately it doesn't. And the court process, as great as it is, and, compared to anywhere else in the world, it's still slow. And it's slow because it's you who needs to pay the bills. It's you who's living in this situation. So I know every day that goes by is, it's torture. It feels really like a long, long time. So that's why if this is something that you need to do, understand that your action, when we say, you've got to take that first step, it still is going to take time. So the sooner your first step, the sooner for the first result or relief that you're looking for. And it's a difficult decision and it's not meant to rush you. It's just to be realistic about the circumstances. Especially around Christmas time, we'll have a lot of folks this month of December and things aren't going well. And it's really difficult. And they say, oh, well, I'll just wait till after the holidays. And I get that, but there's a lot you can do on the back end before the holidays that your husband's not even going to know about. And then come the beginning of the year, after the holidays, and all the family time and everything, and hopefully it's good and not miserable, then we can immediately get moving. So just keep that in mind. And we work, as, and I'm not going to say as fast as possible because it's better to be thorough, understanding, the client's goals and needs and what we can do, but we're not going to do it halfway. It's got to be right because it is that important, particularly on the issues of financials. We really want to make sure those financials are always as up to date as they can be and as accurate. And that takes time because many of you may not really have a handle on all the financials. If you do, then that makes it so much easier. And it really is easy to be fast. But what I'll find in my experience, this is a difficult situation. And it took so much for you to make that first step to, call an attorney and you've heard about this issue of alimony and I want to move forward with my life. And then it feels like such relief. Okay, now I'm done. I've hired them. They're going to handle it all. You still got to do some of the work. And many clients kind of revert back and don't want to do what we really need them to do in those first, few months to help us get our job done better, because we don't know what the bills are. And if we have to subpoena all the bank records and look through that, it's just going to take a lot longer. So the when is important in the fact that alimony is not going to happen right after we file. And it's going to take some time to get that temporary support. And as attorneys and as a woman, and I've seen this situation with so many women so often, it's a little stressful and difficult to put your hands around it, that the court doesn't see a financial need as an emergency, but they don't. And that, it is the way it is. It's pretty hardcore as to what they classify as an emergency. Now, if you have enough facts, some of the things that on a financial scale, and it doesn't go into alimony, it does a little bit, but I want to say this in case anyone is in this situation where your husband's like, man, I'm cashing out my 401k and I'm out of here. And then you start to believe that that's going to happen, and there's some clues that may be happening. The only way I can stop that is by filing for divorce and file an emergency motion to freeze those assets. We've done that on multiple occasions and been successful. Because that happens, and people say things and they may mean them, and they may think, well, I'm just going to do this in a divorce. And that's one of the common things, like I'm taking up money and I'm out of here. And it's way harder to track that money down and get it back than to stop it from ever leaving. So those are, as it relates to the financials and alimony, some of the top things that I really wanted to address today, because it's an area that I think is a lot of gray, a lot of misunderstanding as to how it's going to affect me on whether I may be paying, whether I'm going to be receiving, what is my life going to look like after a divorce? And which is the biggest question most women have. I think really anyone has. How's that going to affect me, and where am I going to be? So, as I would encourage you to do, if you're in this situation where you're looking to move forward, you want to make a change, you recognize that this relationship and what you've been tolerating is not healthy, not productive for you, and you're ready to move forward, please call our office. And if you call within December of 2017, our gift to you will be a reduced consult fee of $100. And, let us assess your situation. And, what we do in that initial meeting is really assess where you are now and what you want, where you want to be. How bad is it? Because, it's just human nature that the situation generally for any human to make change has to be difficult. So let us assess that with you and see if we're the right fit, because it's a very important decision for you and your future, the right fit with the attorney. And we would be happy to answer those questions for you and see if this is the right place for you to help you move on with your life. I thank you all for watching today. And if anyone has any questions, I'm not sure if we can unmute anyone. I'd be happy to answer any questions that someone may have. If I can, keep in mind, I want to keep you confidential, but if I can give you an answer, I'm more than happy to. So go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions, and we'll make that, we'll turn up that volume or whatever, and then we'll answer the questions. And if not, we'll move on, but you're welcome to contact our office, and we'd be happy to help you. All righty. Thank you so very much. I wish you all very happy holidays, and we're happy to help you and help you move on to the life you were meant to live. Thank you.